Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Camcycle's monthly meeting for October. Really excited to have two people here to talk to us about the playing out movement, and in particular, the playing out movement in Cambridge. We've got Julia Sang, who's a playing out activator in Cambridge. And we're also joined by Paul Connelly, who's one of the youth and community coordinators for the area, and he's based in Cambridge. So yeah, we're really delighted to have you join us this evening. Everybody who's joined us online, Julia and Paul are going to talk to us about playing out and how it works and so on. And if you've got questions to ask, then please just put them in the chat box on Facebook or on Twitter, and we'll be picking those up so that we can then feed your questions to Paul and Julia at the end of their talk. So Julia, you've got some slides to share with us. Do you want to click over to those?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for inviting us. It's been a really exciting few years to seeing kind of playing out grow in Cambridge. So, and the more people that know about it, the more we hope that people will be as enthused as Paul and I are about it. So yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Okay, so I'm just going to play this short video, which is by the organisation Playing Out, because it explains what playing out is much better than I could.
We wanted our children to have the freedom to play out like we did, to just make friends on the street, feel part of their community. We decided to try closing the road to cars for a couple of hours after school.
I thought this would be a good opportunity to get children out a little bit more, but also for me to meet some of the older neighbours. You don't want to be sitting in front of television, do you? It's great to be out. I've just walked down this road and met loads of people I've never seen before.
I think it's great. I kind of grew up in these streets. We used to play in this road, but we used to have the freedom to be out to play till about 8 o'clock.
Other residents who've come out, older residents in particular, have been really surprised at the number of children who live in and around this street, because we just don't see them normally.
Just made the road a nice place to live, really.
Thousands of people have now been involved in playing out on their own streets all over the UK. We hope this is a small step towards all children having the freedom to play out where they live every day.
So that was a little introduction to what play streets are, and play streets are run all over the country now. And yeah, essentially the idea is that you get to close your road for 2 to 3 hours to through traffic and make it a safe space for kids to come out and play. So what are the impact of play streets? Well, it might seem obvious, but it's worth going over the benefits, because play streets really do contribute to friendlier, safer communities for children and adults. So children's health. There's a lot of research showing that children aren't spending enough time outside, and playing out gives children the space and the freedom to do just that, to exercise, play freely, gain independence, gain skills and make new friends. Stronger communities. So opening a street for play increases connections, friendship and trust between neighbours of all ages and backgrounds. Active citizenship. Organising play streets shows citizenship in action to children growing up on the street, and quite often inspires them to get involved with stuff on the street, and often other residents feel inspired to do more. And I can say that with absolute certainty that on my street, all 3 of those things have happened since we've started running playing out sessions. And the last thing, culture change, that's a longer term activity, national movement really, to try and give more space for children's freedom. So everything altogether is beginning to change things nationally. So a little bit about my journey to running playing out sessions. We've run 4 or 5 since 2018. And I started by finding a few other parents on the street who were willing to help out organising things. We then went and talked to all of our neighbours to get them on board. And we did find a few people who were reluctant to close the road for a few different reasons. So I thought that it might be helpful to go through some of them for anyone that's interested in organising something. So one of the first things is, why do children need to play out in the street when there are parks nearby? Why can't they play in the garden? So parks are really good for family outings and for older children who can get there by themselves. But for younger children, it usually means a special trip, and it's got to be organised and supervised by adults. So they need play opportunities closer to home. Unlike a generation ago, some people might remember doing it themselves, just going out and playing out on the street. But these days, children aren't getting enough everyday active playtime. But street play is different. It's literally on the doorstep, so children can play semi-supervised while parents get on with other things, or just have a chat. And it allows for unstructured child-led play. Secondly, playing together on the street helps to build a sense of community and belonging, which in turn makes your street a safer and friendlier place. It's a way for children to meet and form friendships, especially with kids that they might not come across normally. I know on my street, I think that we've got like 5 or 6 different schools represented on my street. So the kids pretty much, they might cross each other on the street, but they pretty much only come together when we have playing out sessions. And also the big difference between the street and the garden is that there's more space and freedom to move. So things like big rope skipping, hopscotch, roller skating, cycling, scooting, they're all things that are pretty impossible to do in a small back garden, or sometimes even a big back garden. So, and sometimes people don't have a back garden at all. So that's why we like street play. But why do you need to close the road? When we were kids, we just played out without closing the road. Well, yes, that would be great if we could do that, and that ultimately would be the aim. But danger from fast moving traffic is one of the main reasons that children don't play out nowadays. In many residential streets, cars, both parked cars and moving cars, dominate to such an extent that play becomes impossible. So closing the road to through traffic and having stewards in place to monitor cars coming in provides the reassurance parents need to allow their children to play out while still allowing residents car access. And that's a really important point. When we say we close the street, it's closing it to traffic that's just driving through. But if residents still need to get in and out, they're able to. Playing out sessions can be a first step towards changing attitudes about the place of cars in residential streets. Next question, will you still let visitors and deliveries through? Yes, we will. The events are kept safe with stewards by the road closure signs, and any cars that need to gain access can be walked in or walked out by the stewards, making sure that the road is safe and that there's no children out before the cars go through. I love this picture because I think the second playing out session that we had, it was pouring with rain, and I stood there for about 15 minutes thinking, is anyone going to turn up? And then all these kids turned up, and all the chalk we had melted into all the puddles, and all the puddles became rainbow puddles, and it was brilliant. So yeah, question, does it happen even in bad weather? Yes, it does. Something else that we had on our street, won't it encourage children to think the road is a safe place to play under normal circumstances, especially young children? So there is quite a strong agreement that even young children can understand the difference between an event with a road closure and normal circumstances. And there's research by the University of Bristol to back this up. So it showed that when asked, children clearly described visual and audible clues which signaled that the road was open. So for example, they said things like the bins come out, the high-vis jackets, the car noise stops. So they can tell the difference. And parents also acknowledged that they were still responsible for teaching their children the rules of the road. So this is playing out sessions are a good opportunity for parents to talk to their children about road safety and the danger of traffic, but also to observe what streets could be like if traffic was less dominant, and start to think about ways to slow cars down on the street to just make them safer. Next question, who's going to pay if my property gets damaged? We get a lot of questions around and concerns around what if my car gets damaged? What if someone kicks a ball and it smashes my window? Those kind of questions. So first of all, to say that these events are really unlikely to happen. In all of the thousands of children that have attended playing out events, there's the playing out, the national body kind of coordinate. They have very little feedback about anything really going wrong. But it is we make it really clear to parents that the parents are still responsible for their children and their children's behaviour. And also that any damage that does happen has to be the responsibility of the parents and the families to make good. So we would just expect a kind of a neighbourly discussion if something did get broken between the people responsible, and they can work out how to make good the damage. And the last question that I'm going to talk about today is this one. So this is, I haven't got young children, and this idea makes me feel excluded from my own street. And again, on my street, this was something that came up a few times when I first went and knocked on people's doors to talk about them. We have a very intergenerational street. We have lots of older residents. I did get feedback on the street from people who weren't really sure that it would be for them, and they've kind of felt excluded. So one thing that I talked to those people about was, first of all, I said to them, well, look, would you be happy with us trying it and seeing how it goes and seeing how you feel about it afterwards? And I also kind of acknowledged what they were saying, because to them it was a real concern. So, you know, I said, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Would you be willing to try it? Most people were willing to give it a go. But also, it's really important to recognise that for the vast majority of time, children feel excluded from the space right outside their homes because of the traffic, because of the cars that are parked there. And a playing out session is just a very small way to redress the balance. So if you are organising an event, it's important to make sure that residents of all ages feel welcome to be out on the street. So to invite anybody to come out and say, well, you know, you can come out and join in, or come out and meet some of the other families on the street, just bring a cup of tea. But also, of course, no one should feel any obligation to join in if they don't want to. And I know on the first playing out session that I went to, it was actually the older residents that decided, right, we're going to support this and take on the stewarding responsibilities. And they were sharing memories about their own childhood play experiences with some of the younger children. So those are some things that you can talk to people about. I have got at the bottom here a link for playingout.net with possible concerns, because they go through about, I don't know, 15 or 20 different concerns. So if you are thinking about doing a play street and you're coming across some different reasons, that's a really good resource for you to go and check out. So what can you do now? Well, you can definitely start thinking about a play street for spring. If it was me, I'd be thinking about a play street for winter, but it does take a few months of organising. I think that's fair to say, because Paul's going to go through the process of organising it in a minute. And I think if you started thinking about it, spring would be a good point to aim for. Also, you don't have to close your streets to be more playful and to make play spaces available for children. So there's lots of other things that you can do if the organisation were to close a street is a bit too much, or like us, actually, we aren't able to close our street. It kind of falls outside of the remit because it's too big. It's too much of a kind of a through road. So I'll talk about that in a minute, but some of the things that you can do is just go and play out on the pavement instead of playing out in your back garden. chalk up the pavement. You could do a coordinated chalking up. I heard of someone recently saying that they did weed graffiti, which is going along the street and naming all of the weeds that they can see on the street so that people kind of see what their names are. Going out roller skating, just even leaving your front door open if you're, you know, kind of, kids can just play just outside while you're just doing something in the house. Chatting to a neighbour. I saw one recently where someone had hung a hammock outside their house and invited people to play on there. Yeah, and just remind drivers that people live on your street too. And then what we do, because of the difficulties of our road, is that we play out at the end of our road in the church car park. And this has its pros and its cons. So the benefit of this is that it's really easy to organise, because we book it with the church puts some information up for us to tell people not to park there, and then we just invite lots of people. And we can invite people from a bit wider than our street because it's not street closure. So we span a slightly wider area than a street closure might do. And it's a really nice big space to play out in. I'd say the cons of it is what you do lose is you lose that intergenerational play or the connections that you might get if you closed your own street, because if it's happening right on your doorstep, it's really easy to just step outside for 10 minutes with your cup of tea and see what's going on and chat to people. But if it's happening somewhere else, like ours do, then people generally don't pop along just to say hello. And also, it's not quite as inclusive as it might be if we were able to close the street. But if you're interested and you want to see what it's all about, our next playing out session is the 6th of November at St Luke's Church car park, or just on Stretton Avenue, and you're very welcome to join us. Come and see what it's about. Come and ask me any questions. Yeah, it would be great to see you there. And if you've got any questions, I'd be happy to answer them afterwards.
Thanks, Julia. And how lovely to finish with an open invitation as well. Thanks. It's been really, really good to hear, first of all, your introduction, obviously, to playing out, but also from your own experience, you know, what it's been like actually running this and how you have overcome some of those initial issues that have come up with neighbours, but also the real issue of not actually being able to close your road, and how you've got around that to make sure that you can still make an event happen that will bring in some of those lovely positives that can come out of the playing out movement. You know, community stuff and, you know, freedom for children, all that sort of stuff. So thanks, Julia. We're now going to hear from Paul, who, for those of us who just missed our opening this evening, Paul is the Youth and Community Coordinator for Cambridge. He's one of a number who operate in our region, and he operates for Cambridge. So Paul is here to give us an insight into how this stuff happens behind the scenes as well. So how it's possible to close your road and what sort of things you need to do practically. So Paul, would you like to begin your screen sharing?
Yes, will do. Thank you, Rosie. And also, yes, thank you for inviting me as well. It's lovely to be with you all. So as Rosie said, my name's Paul, and I work at the County Council. It's my job to support residents with all sorts of queries about playing out. And I'm sort of the informal lead at the County Council for playing out. I really got interested in this about 6-7 years ago. And it was really interesting that as far as I'm aware, across Cambridgeshire, we had, I don't think, any playing out events when I first started getting into this. I wasn't aware of any playing out events at all. In fact, in our highways department, and the highways department at the County Council, I'll go through this in a minute, but they're the people that actually authorise a road to be closed. They hadn't heard of it either. I mean, they were aware what like a street party was. I think people were quite clear and happy about residents holding street parties, but playing out was a bit new. So we were all sort of starting together. So on the screen at the moment is one of the reasons really I think playing out is so important, because here it's about a family in Sheffield. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, you've got the great-grandfather. It's all about when they were 8 years old. So great-grandfather George, when he was 8 in 1919, he was allowed to walk 6 miles to go fishing from where he lived in Sheffield with his family to the Rother Valley. So within a generation, if we just look to the left, grandfather Jack, when he was 8 in 1950, he was able to walk 1 mile on his own to the woods. And there you can see the little circle. Back another generation, Mother Vicky, aged 8 in 1979, was allowed to walk to the swimming pool alone 1/2 mile away. And then her son, Ed, now aged 8, is only allowed to walk on his own to the end of his street, which is 300 yards. And I don't think this is unusual for families over the generations, that the sort of freedom for children to roam and to play and to be out has got smaller and smaller. So an organised event in your street, I suppose, is one way of counteracting this a little bit. And also, I think playing out is wonderful anyway, but after the 18 months that we've all just had, and with COVID and with the restrictions, I can't think of a better event that a community could hold to start celebrating some of the sort of lessening of the restrictions, shall we say? Okay, I'm going to talk about the process. I haven't got these. Julie had these lovely pictures of children playing. And I'm going to take you through process. So I won't dwell. We'll just go through this. I try to make it as colourful as possible, but it is what it is. It's the process. So if, as Julia said at the end of her presentation, you don't have to close your road if you don't want to. I mean, it's not illegal for children to play out on the street. I think it's worth emphasising that. You know, children can play out on their bikes and their scooters and get their skipping ropes out and play hopscotch and do all that. That's not illegal at all. It's something I did. I grew up in London, and it's something I did every single day when I was a child. We just took it for granted, just played in the street. But if you want to close your road to make it safe, so you've got road close signs at each end, and you've got stewards and whistles and high-vis jackets and all the rest of it to make it safe. The organisers must complete the online application form to apply for a TTRO, which is a temporary traffic regulation order, to close the road for their event. And as I said, it's our highways, the County Council's highways department, it's the highways team that will issue the TTRO and give you all sorts of advice about your road. It was really unfortunate that I was working with Julia right at the start with her road. Julia's road is a very long road with several bends in it, and our highways department decided in the end that the bends meant that there were potentially blind spots for cars and stuff coming round. Now, highways departments are very risk averse. I mean, you want risk averse people to work in your highways team because, you know, they're paramount about safety. I work in community development, so I come from things from a different sort of viewpoint, obviously wanting things to be safe. So, but I think there's maybe a sort of, you know, there's a discussion and a journey to be had. And I'm certainly having this with highways, and they're being really, really positive and brilliant about things. But unfortunately for Julia's road, we weren't able to get around the issues that highways felt the very long road that Julia lives on had. But you apply for a TTRO to have your road closed. And the maximum duration that you can close your road for a temporary one anyway is 3 hours. But you can apply for multiple events within a 12-month period. So if you think that your street is going to be doing this once a month, rather than 12 applications, you can wrap all 12 events up in one application, and you can have those multiple events. So what you need to apply. So you need a completed application form. You need a traffic management plan, because as Julia said, you're not stopping cars from going in and out of the road for residents to park or to leave, but what you are stopping is through traffic. So what you will need to show is where that through traffic will go as an alternative route because your road is closed. You'll need to do an event risk assessment. So you need to talk about the sort of hazards that potentially could arise and what you will do about those hazards. I will go into a bit more depth about this in a couple of slides. And you'll also need to send into the Highways Department a copy of your resident letter, because you'll need to talk to your local neighbours, and you'll need to get a letter composed, formally putting it through their door saying what you're going to do. And the Highways team require 8 weeks notice to generate a TTRO. So you're looking at a 2-month lead in really for running an event. So you would be, I mean, you'd really be getting your skates on to get one before Christmas. It's possible. I mean, if you're fired up tonight by our talk and you really want to run something before Christmas, that will be possible if you quickly talk to your residents and got your application form and your traffic management plan and risk assessment all in within the 8-week period that they'll need. Insurance fees and signage. The County Council recommends that event organisers take out public liability insurance for their event. Now, they recommend, and this is part of my discussion that I had with our highways team. Initially, they were making it a requirement that you had to do this, but it was putting residents off because they felt the whole thing was then going to be down to them. And the sort of taking complete charge was something a bit beyond what people were thinking what this was all about. And the highways team listened to the arguments and said, well, we're okay to sort of we'll scale it back to, we'll recommend that you take insurance, but it's not, you don't have to do it. And this again goes back to what Julie was saying about if people are worried about cars getting damaged or whatever they're worried about. It's really to make it clear from the very start, I think, if you're an organizer and talking to your neighbours, that parents are still responsible for the actions of their children. But, we have to say that, and this goes back to risk assessments, the likelihood of something happening is tiny. I mean, the main playing out people in Bristol keep statistics on this, and they are absolutely tiny about problems that happen with a playing out event. So, but it's entirely up to do whether you want to take out public liability or if you don't. Lots of people don't bother, and they make it very clear to parents in the street that if anything happens, if there's a problem, they are liable. But of course, you need to think it's not just people's private property that could potentially be damaged. The county council own things in the street like lampposts and stuff. So I mean, I can't see how a lamppost could be damaged, but just in case a lamppost was damaged, the county council may require that to be made good. But again, you could argue that the parents of the children would take responsibility for that rather than the organisers of the event. So that's insurance. There's no charge at the county council for producing a TTRO at all. And all signs on the public highway must be in accordance set out with the traffic sign regulations and general direction. It's a very technical sort of thing, but they need to be of a certain standard if you're going to have a road closed sign. Now, we've got, when I first started out with this, I bought a pile of road closed signs and high-vis jackets and whistles and cones. And they're all stored at Parkside Police Station. I think we got 10 of each. And Parkside Police Station very kindly said that they would store them. And that's for residents to use. So you don't have to buy the stuff in the first place. And it all fits with the accordance set out. But I think on the latest Facebook group that we've got for playing out in Cambridge, I think residents were starting to talk about maybe sharing out the the road close signs across Cambridge, and each one storing a few, so it's a bit more even now, but I don't know how far that has got. So again, if you're interested, you can join the Facebook group, and obviously you can talk to Parkside Police Station, because I think they might still be there. So you don't need to buy signage. I think also our highways team are buying more signs as well that you can hire for free as well. So the County Council website gives full guidance for a playing out event. So you don't need just to rely on hearing me talk this evening and with all my ums and ahs. It's all there on the County Council website, and they will and the website includes examples of these rather technical things that I've talked about. So they give an example of a traffic management plan. They give an example of a risk assessment and a consultation letter for your residents and a residence notification letter. And they also give guidance on how to set out and remove your signage. And to show how far highways the discussion has moved, because obviously they're really concerned about safety. They wanted when we were talking about playing out events, they wanted residents to do a mandatory one-day course on road signage and how to set the signs out in a very safe way. But again, I was arguing and talking with our highways team saying, well, that's going to put residents off, because to do a one-day course, and it was only, I think, available in London, that's a lot of time out. It's a lot of responsibility for, a couple of residents to take on. So again, they listened to that and they've changed things. So now there's guidance on our website. I think there's a little film just guiding you about how best to sort of, if you're going to close your road, how to do it as safely as possible, how to set out the cones, and how to put your road close signs out. I mean, when you see it, it's all very sort of common sense, but it's nice just to go through it so everyone obviously is as safe as possible. But it's all there on our County Council website. I'd just like to finish with some useful links. So the first link is organising playing out event. That's on our County Council website. The second one is the main playing out people in Bristol, where there's all sorts of resources and things on their website. Really recommend people having a look at that. And then there's a link to the Cambridge playing out Facebook, where I think there's over 100 members or so. I think Julia now, maybe. Anyway, there's lots of. It's growing daily. The Facebook team. So yeah, have a look at that as well. And hopefully you've been fired up for organising a playing out event in your street. And yeah, like Julia, very happy to take questions.
Oh, thanks so much, Paul, for taking us through the stuff. I know what you mean, following somebody with a beautiful presentation, but really that's what we needed, the kind of nuts and bolts of how it works and where to go to find those sort of practical steps. So thank you. Julia, I wonder, you talked a little bit about your own experience of organising playing out stuff locally. Can you tell us a little bit more about your activator role, what that means? Because you're somebody who's run a few playing out sessions, but I know that you're also quite instrumental for other groups who are trying to get them started. I know that you're very active on the Facebook group and that sort of things. So yeah, could you tell us a little bit more about what the role means?
Yeah, I think it's so the national organisation Playing Out is a grassroots movement, and it's community led, and the word has been spread by people in communities who are passionate about playing out and think it's a great thing. And so what Playing Out has done is they give loads of support to people who just think it's a great idea, and they call them activators. And yeah, it's given me, I suppose, Playing Out's given me a place I can go to ask questions to, and then it's my absolute pleasure to talk to anybody and everybody who's interested in playing out, to let them know this is how you can get started, this is why we should do it. Yeah, we started the Facebook group back with 2018, was it, or 2019, I think it was, when after I'd spoken to Paul to just find people in Cambridge and Cambridgeshire who were interested in doing it. And now it's taken on a life of its own. It's brilliant. There's loads of stuff happening that I don't even know about. And that's, and the more it happens, the more people come across play streets, the more they want to do it. So that's how exactly how it should be. And there's more people that are organising this stuff and talking to people and being passionate about it as well. So yeah.
Okay, great. So you're kind of you're there as a touch point really for other people who want to get started, but your impression now is that it's sort of snowballing. And certainly that's my experience as a local parent as well, is that I'm aware of a number of playing out events that have happened in our locality. And we've been invited to one this Saturday, for example, and I know that just a couple of streets away, the same area hosted one a few weeks ago as well. So really exciting that it's taking on a life of its own. Have anything about the play streets that you've seen coming up in Cambridge surprised you, or anything taken you by surprise? Or
so I suppose because I don't know about so many of them, I don't know what the most I can only speak about the ones that I know about, but the two things that I thought were brilliant was there was a recent one at Hurst Park where they closed off a road and invited lots of children from lots of streets. And that was fantastic. They had a band play from local residents, and they had all sorts of stuff going on, which I thought was brilliant. It was a celebration. And then at one playing out event that we ran, was the star of the show was an office chair that had been dumped in the car park, and the kids jumped on it and had the best time pushing each other around. And then right at the very end, one of the mums that had come along said, I needed a new office chair. I'm going to take this home and recover it and give it a new lease of life. I was like, well, there we go.
That's great. They're so inventive, children. And I'm thinking about some of the toys that we could maybe pass on to people with younger children now. If I thought that, something that my children might find dumped somewhere could, replace them. Yeah, great. We've got, I wonder as well, about what you were describing there. Paul was talking a little bit about people at highways being very familiar with the idea of a street party when you first sort of started talking about playing out and so on, but actually there's a lot of crossover when you describe the event on Hurst Park Avenue and for that little estate there, and certainly that's sort of what we're expecting to find on Saturday as well, given the numbers that we've heard about. So there's quite a lot of crossover here. And how Paul, is there any difference in the procedural stuff between hosting a playing out event and hosting a street party, or are they very closely linked? Are they,
They are closely linked, yeah. And on our website, if you follow that link, the two options that you get is to click the two buttons is it a street party that you want to organise or playing out. So they are very close. There are some obviously some differences, because with a street party, usually cars aren't allowed in and out because people are sitting down and you're eating, or things are going on, or there's a band playing, so you might have a little stage at one end, and so it is completely closed for the duration. Where in playing out, as I say, residents can leave and arrive in their cars if they wish. But yeah, there's a lot of crossover.
I think one thing that we're not at yet, but I know other places in the country are, is the closing streets really on a really regular basis. So, for example, I know some streets close their street every week after school, from say between 3:30 and 5:30, and they turn that street into a play street on a weekly basis. And that's something that that's one difference for me between a street party and a play out, is that you can have it with a regularity that makes it really normalizes children being able to take over the street for that time.
And that's really interesting, isn't it? You were talking right at the beginning of your presentation, Julia, about there being a sort of culture shift that both comes from the playing out movement as it sort of becomes more regular, but also the observation that both of you made in your presentations, that there has been a culture shift away from the notion that children might be riding bikes and playing on scooters and skipping in the streets outside their home, whereas historically that was a very normal thing to see and encourage and so on. So given that we hear from you about other places that are doing this really regularly, what do you, from both of your point of view, what do you think needs to change in Cambridge to really get us to that tipping point where, it's either so easy to arrange these things, Paul, that people just do it all the time and it becomes really regular, or Julia, where people, you think the organisers have the confidence and the will and so on to make it happen really regularly? Where do you think we might in Cambridge find the tipping point there?
It's interesting because I think Julia might have been giving the example of, was it in the Northeast where you're getting that example from running it every week? Because I was at a national sort of webinar about playing out, and I don't know if you were there, Julia, but it's on obviously on Zoom. But one of the organisers that sort of does my job in the Northeast was talking about. She showed a map of her area, and it was all the streets quite near the coast that had run playing out events. So I asked, why is it all the ones by the coast that are not sort of further inland? And he said it's simply a domino effect, that one street organised it, ran it successfully, did it again, and some neighbours from the next street watched and saw and thought, oh, we'd like to do it in our street, and then their street did it, and the neighbours from the next street. So there's this whole domino effect, and I think that's one of the things that we need, going back to a tipping point in Cambridge, or certainly across Cambridgeshire, that we just need a few streets to be running them quite regularly for the local neighbours and local people just to see it in action and think, you know what, we could do that. We could that would be really nice for our street. At the moment, they're I wouldn't say I suppose they're pretty rare. If you think of Cambridge as a city, there's probably not that many playing out events that are happening every year. So we just need to sort of, it's gathering pace. I think we've got a momentum, but we're not quite at that tipping point. We're also, the process has got better at the county council. It was clunky at the beginning. It definitely was clunky at the beginning. That's got better. Certainly it'd be fantastic if we could move to the point, if someone did want to run it every single week, that they could put, for a year, they could put 52 events on one application form. But we're not quite there yet. We need people like Julia or Gold Dust. We need dozens of Julias. We need activists that are going to, really get this going.
I can certainly see from the point of view of somebody, I live on in a cul-de-sac, and we have quite a lot of playing out that happens very spontaneously, not in an organised way, but I can see that actually there would be, if we were a bit more generous with our time and could put a bit of time in to fill out the forms and get the ball rolling with all that infrastructure stuff that you're describing, Paul, then in a way, we would be supporting the surrounding streets to do more of what we are able to do just by virtue of where we live, the specific location here. And I was thinking about what you were saying about the streets leading up to the coast, and those being those initial streets. And Jim's asked a question on the chat. Jim lives outside of Cambridge. He lives in one of the necklace villages. And he's asking whether or not there are any beyond the city. And I'm pretty sure that the answer to that is yes, Jim. But Julia, can I pass this over to you?
Yeah, I think, well, Paul might know more than me, actually, but I think there was some in Histon over the summer. Is that right?
And Great Shelford ran several events over the summer. Yeah. So I suppose it's been Cambridge centric because, this is where, myself, where I work, and, Julia lives, and it sort of started here. But I've recently at the county council, we've taken on a whole group of new staff under the sort of Think Communities team that we've got. So we've got community connectors in all parts of the county now, and I've trained all the new community connectors in playing out. So there's a couple for each area. So we've got about 12 or 14 community connectors across the county, and they've all been trained now in playing out. So whether you live in South Cambs or Hunts or East Cambs or Fenland, there'll be a community connector or a youth and community coordinator near you that will be able to help and support you.
That's really good to hear.
I was just going to say, as John's just raised in the chat, our next magazine is just about out, and we do have an article in there. And one of our members, Yasmin, has run some events in Boston. So yeah, you can read a bit more about that in the magazine.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that. Yeah, Yasmin did stuff in Sawston. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking about how, sorry, just going back, Paul, to something that you were saying about, you know, there being people around to support you, but the idea that you might be able to apply for multiple events all at the same time, that's starting to sound like something that's much more doable. I mean, I know that Julia was talking about, you know, can you play out in the rain and so on? The answer is definitely yes, but are you more likely to entice everybody out with their cups of tea and so on, to get people talking with neighbours and so on and so forth? More likely if you're, you know, you've got a happier date in which to do it. And so I suppose one of the nice things about being able to apply for multiple events all at once would be that actually, if the weather's not great for number one, then, you know, you accept a sort of perhaps a smaller turnout, but then you know, you can all really look forward to the next one when it's slightly better weather and so on.
And once you've done the initial application, because you do the traffic management plan once, you do your risk assessment once. It's a bit of a hurdle to do the first one because you need to complete all those things. But once they're completed and you've done it, subsequent applications, then you've got it on file, and then you're just looking at dates and stuff. So the hardest one is the first one to do, but it's the most exciting one to do, because that's when, you know, you're getting your neighbours and chatting and plotting together in a front room, or over the kitchen table over a coffee or something.
Well,
and also it strikes me that the applications that, you know, that are done by one set of residents for one street, you know, for nearby streets, there can be some sharing there because the roads may well look similar and so on. Sorry, Julia, I think I interrupted.
No, I was just wondering, can you apply for multiple dates now? Can you apply for like 3 or 4 dates? Yeah. But maybe not 52. But if you knew you wanted to run one a month over the summer or something, you could do that now.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, you can do that now.
That's really good to hear. So it sounds as though a lot of work has gone into taking out some of the stuff that, you know, the barriers that were putting people off organising these events. Speaking of barriers, Jim's asked another question at Julia with regards to your street and why it wasn't possible to close your street. He's saying, why aren't streets like Stretton Avenue not LTNs? He's describing cycling down there last week and encountering drivers who perhaps felt like they, you know, should really own the road. Why aren't they LTNs?
It's a great question. There's been a lot of chatter on our street about what we can do to improve the traffic situation. I mean, I can't exactly answer. I know a little bit about it. In fact, you might even know more than me, but I know, for example, that it's difficult to restrict our street to heavy goods vehicles because essentially it's not enforceable by anybody. And I know that the traffic's improved a lot since Histon Road has reopened, because we were getting a lot of lorries that were coming down our road because it was the main cut through. But yeah, I think that it's considered too much of a main, my impression is it's considered too much of a main route to kind of do like a modal filter or something, or even turn it into something like Carlisle Road, which would be amazing.
For anybody who's watching, sorry, I should have rather than giving the acronym, I should have said LTNs are low traffic neighbourhoods. So they are neighbourhoods where you filter traffic by using things like modal filters and so on, traffic calming, yeah, to lower the traffic. Yeah, so I hear what you're saying, that it's been used as an arterial route for people. And at the moment, it sounds as though it's considered too much of an arterial route.
Yeah, I think there's people interested in doing something about it on our street, but I'm the kind of person that thinks, okay, I'd like to focus on the playing out stuff rather than, I'm going to let the other people organise, and I'll support them with it. But yeah, if anyone's got any good ideas, I'd be definitely all ears for that.
Yeah, certainly, you do a lot.
Because I know from, you've done some other things on the road, like you've made a little mini parklet, haven't you? So have you sort of found that you've really got to know your neighbours really well from doing this, and that's led to other projects, or was that completely separate?
No, I think it has. So I think, I've been on the street for 4 years, and some people on our street have been on here for 40 years. So there's a lot of residents that are very well connected and have known each other for a really long time, and then there's other people who, you know, are rented accommodation, they change every year, and the playing out was definitely a way for me to meet other families on the street for a start. And then when COVID happened, like many streets, I think we got together and we created a more of a formal way of communicating with each other. So we started off an email list, and then the email list was probably possible because people knew each other better, because we felt more connected through the playing out. And then the email list lent to us being able to organise ourselves better for things like improving the neighbourhood, planting trees, organising playing out, sharing stuff. So yeah, it's definitely had a knock-on effect of bringing the street together.
Julia, that's kind of where you started with your presentation, talking about playing out being something that really brings people together, it brings children together, brings people of all generations together in being able to really live in the streets where their homes are. And so that feels like a nice way to finish this part of our meeting this evening. So thank you so much for joining us. We really, really appreciate hearing from you about your experience. And Paul, thanks ever so much for all the work you're doing behind the scenes at the council too. We're about to move on to the section of our meeting which is about the campaigning that we're involved in. And so feel free to stay on the meeting and you know, hear about that. But we understand completely if you've got, you know, children to say goodnight to and so on and so forth behind the scenes. So I'm going to move us into speaker view, and then Anna, I'm going to pass over to you to do our campaign update. Thank you so much, both of you, once again for joining us.
So this is a nice chalk picture from that Hurst Park Avenue playing out scheme recently we were talking about, and I was sad to miss that one. I really hope to get along to one in that area soon. And this kind of sums up, just to start, before we get into kind of campaigning things, I thought September really was a month of Camcycle getting out and about since last month. So this is just some of the pictures of some of the things that we've been doing. We've been on a social ride, we've had volunteers delivering leaflets and getting to some of the freshers fairs. The bottom left is Roxanne fixing a puncture on the way back from the A10 campaign ride, so it was really great to join with that group this weekend. And then there's me at the Stourbridge Fair talking to members and supporters, and that was another really lovely event. It's just been so good to see people in person a bit over the last few weeks, and we hope to be able to continue to do that in the future as well. So this is some of the things that we have been out and about delivering to people. If you live within Cambridge or some of the areas where we have educational institutions, you may be noticing a lot more students around and international students. And so we have been delivering our Welcome to Cycling leaflets. We've been delivering advice on how to protect your cycle, keep it safe from cycle theft. So that's our little leaflet there in the middle. And then also with the nights drawing in, getting a bit darker, we've got some posters about cycle lighting. So just at the bottom of each of these are the URLs you can go to on our website to find out more, to download the leaflets and to watch a Welcome to Cycling video. And so, yeah, do check out those things. That's some of the important work we do on resources and kind of helping people stay safe and happy when they cycle. And do get in touch as well if you know anywhere we should be putting some of these posters up or putting some of these leaflets in your local bike shop or library. Just get in touch with us. And in case you were wondering, so our campaign about cycle theft, which we're calling Save Our Cycles, we've been promoting that the last few months and really encouraging people to lock their bike securely and log their frame number with bike register. And this is a picture to show that it really does work. This is the police saying that they managed to reunite this girl with her cycle thanks to her frame number being registered on bike register. So it really does work. If you haven't done it already, go and find your frame number. You can check out our YouTube channel where our executive director Roxanne has done a video showing you how to find your frame number, and make sure you log that on bike register. Should the worst happens, it will maximise your chances of having your cycle safely returned to you. Now on to some news from us, and this is really, really exciting. We are recruiting at the moment, and we are really excited to say that we are looking for an autumn intern for an 8-week project, and this is really an amazing project that you get to work on to promote the potential of cargo bikes in Cambridgeshire, and the lucky sort of candidate will get to talk to families, get to talk to businesses, really get to the bottom about why cargo bikes are amazing, why people should try them out. So kind of some blog writings, filming, social media, just everything to shout about and celebrate cargo bikes, and that is funded by the City Changer cargo bike programme, which is a European programme. So this is really important international work, and we can't wait for Cambridge to be involved in it. So if you or somebody you know would be interested in this internship, please apply now at camcycle.org.uk/internship. And the deadline for applications is 9 AM on Monday. So get applying now. You may even look as happy as we are in this picture, but it may not be as sunny. Okay, this is a bit of a local authority news. There's quite a lot been happening, so I'll just go through this fairly quickly. But just starting in the top left with the combined authority. So last week, Mayor Nick Johnson of the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority, he was on the radio and putting out a statement saying he is fundamentally wedded to the improvements on Mill Road, and also the scheme in Peterborough, the Crescent Bridge. They had a pop-up cycle lane there, and the bus gate in Mill Road. Both of those schemes, the government have been concerned that those schemes were taken out sort of too quickly with not the right sort of evidence and things, and so they have made that very clear to the combined authority that they really need to demonstrate their commitment to active travel. And Mayor Dr. Nick Johnson has said that active travel is something that our region cannot fail on. So you know, he is determined to seeing those consultations on those schemes get rolling, and let's see what we can do on Mill Road and on Crescent Bridge and Peterborough, and as well as other active travel schemes all across the county. So that is really great to see him come out strongly in favour of active travel. And Camcycle, we agree. We'd like to see a really good consultation. We'd like to see the concerns of people had addressed in terms of disability access, for example, and traders, but also we really want it recognised that those schemes, both those schemes, had very, very strong public support. People want to see better walking and cycling, so let's get delivering it. If we move to the top right, we have, this is Councillor Lewis Herbert, who currently is leader of the Cambridge City Council, but he just announced last night that he is stepping down from that role, and so there are 4 candidates standing for leader, and we'll find out who that's going to be next week. But I was listening to the report on this on the radio, and they were saying, you know, this is not just about being the leader of our little city. That person also is involved in the Greater Cambridge Partnership. They're on the board of the Combined Authority, so there are complicated kind of layers of local authority here, and that the person, the new leader, really has quite a say in terms of transport in our region. So it'd be really interesting to see who that next person is, and we thank Councillor Herbert for all his work over the last 7 years, and he will remain a councillor for Coleridge as well. Now, the Greater Cambridge Partnership, this is a picture of Loard Road, so this is one of 6 schemes that went to the GCP Executive Board last week, and they voted unanimously to recommend that all of these modal filter schemes are made permanent and improved where necessary, which is great to see. And this one was actually one that initially officers recommended that was taken out. But thanks to some great campaigning from Camcycle supporters, from local residents, we're really pleased to see that one is included, along with schemes such as Carlisle Road, Stories Way, Silver Street, Nightingale Avenue and Newtown. And so they've kind of passed through the 2 levels of the Greater Cambridge Partnership, but the final hurdle is, I haven't copied this right, it should say County Council, Cambridge County Council, it should say at the end there. So the final hurdle is the Highways and Transport meeting, and we believe this will come to the meeting on the 4th of November. So what we need to do now is really think of the ways that we can influence what happens at that meeting, really kind of put the case to the members of the committee that will be voting on it at that meeting, and also indeed your own county councillors, wherever you may be in the county. So please write to your county councillors and kind of make the case for these safer walking and cycling routes, these nicer streets for residents, and indeed traffic reduction across the whole city and beyond. So we have been meeting fairly regularly. We have a traffic reduction subgroup at the moment with Camcycle, and we have a meeting coming up on Tuesday, so do get in touch as well if you want to come along to that. That's another meeting where we're talking about ways to achieve traffic reduction across our region, and ways to press for change, and that will be one of the things we will be discussing at our next meeting. This is Histon Road, as Julia was saying, that is now open to traffic in both directions, and I think this is how it was when I last saw it, but it's I think there's a lot less cones and things now. This junction that we campaigned for, a safe junction at Gilbert Road, that I think is expected to be open this Friday. I don't know if anybody on this call has seen anything or heard anything better than me, but if not, I will be heading up there on Friday to sort of see what it's like, because this is a very exciting called a Cyclops junction. There are 2 in Manchester, and this one will be the first one in Cambridge and the 3rd in the country, cycling priority junction. So what with the Dutch style roundabout Fendon Road, this is another exciting style of junction coming to our city. So let's go and check that out. Thank you to everybody that campaigned for that. And finally, so last month I apologised that this magazine was running late, and I'm really sorry about that. And I, just to keep you hanging even a little bit more, just to tease you, it is not quite online yet. It will be online tomorrow, and it is at the printers now. The printed versions will be with you next week, so look out for that. But opening tonight, launching tonight, is our Camcycle member survey, which we would love you to get involved in. So if you want to be one of the first to go to this link and have your say as a Camcycle member on what we're doing and what you'd like to see, please head to camcycle.org.uk/member survey. 2021. We really want to hear what you think about our communications, about our charity, and there's an opportunity to give your thoughts on our strategy and website as well. And it's really, really important to us that we're a democratic organisation, so we really want to hear what members have to say. So do go along to that link and give us your views. And just to say, there are quite a few consultations kind of coming up in the autumn, but this is a rare kind of lull sort of before another big rush of consultations on, for example, congestion charging, which will be used to fund better buses and active travel. There's a consultation coming up on the local plan, but yeah, look out for that in your Camcycle updates. And if you're not a Camcycle member, this is a really good time to join. So head to camcycle.org.uk/membership and get involved with what we do. And then finally, thank you to everybody who has joined us tonight. Thank you again to Julia and Paul for telling us about playing out. See you next month.
Bye.